Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Vortex, where lies and falsehoods are trapped and exposed. I'm Michael Voris. In the past 2 or 3 months, which also happens to coincide with the Washington, D.C. press conference sponsored by the Deposit of Faith Coalition, of which Church Militant is a part, the conservative media spotlight is now shining ever more brightly on the U.S. bishops and their role in the exploitation of minors at the border. For Catholics who understand, exploiting minors is something the U.S. hierarchy and its staffers have excelled at for decades. In fact, they could hand the cartels a how-to manual. One such example is an excellent article from the Christian Review last week, which blasts the United States Conference of Communist Bishops. Allows to quote a very small portion from the publication, whose title is, "Are the U.S. bishops covering up child exploitation again?" Note the "again" part, which sets the tone right out of the gate. Quote, "Have any of the children cared for by the church suffered exploitation in their journey to the border or in placements facilitated by the Catholic Church? I asked," the reporter speaking. The USCCB refused to respond. The USCCB's lack of transparency is unacceptable. Mounting evidence has exposed gross exploitation of children at the border. The USCCB remains the primary institutional voice opposing border restrictions, while also contracting to provide care to unaccompanied children. In 2020 and 2021, the USCCB had contracts for nearly $25 million each year to care for and place migrant children. What happened to these children, and why won't the USCCB discuss it? You'd think that after the sex abuse scandals of the past 70 years, the billions paid out by the bishops in secret settlement agreements, that's billions with a B, the bankrupting now of almost 36 dioceses and counting to avoid having to pay any more, not to mention, of course, the wrecked lives of the children, mostly boys, the suicides, the drug addictions, the nightmares, that after all that, these scoundrels and miters would have learned a lesson. But no, there's just too much money in it for them to care about the kids. Way too much money. In fact, the total amount of money the U.S. bishops have drawn down from federal, state, county, and municipal governments is in excess of billions of dollars. A large chunk of that funnels to so-called Catholic charities, which is neither Catholic nor very charitable. In 2002, the neglect and complicity of the U.S. bishops in the gay clergy sex abuse scandal was finally brought to light by the Boston Globe's nearly year-long expose. With that series of prize-winning reports, what it revealed was that much of the hierarchy are downright sinister sociopaths who hide behind the church and their offices. Then, after calling the Dallas Charter to fix the problem, nothing changed. A great show was put on for the media, but eventually the truth came out again. The very men behind the Dallas Charter, especially former Cardinal Theodore McCarrick, were themselves abusers. They had just conveniently drafted the charter to exclude bishops from any accountability. Is that convenient? Now, all that came crashing down in 2018 when it came out, again, through legal action, that McCarrick was the most notorious abuser perhaps in church history. But once again, the bishops circled the wagons, protected themselves, and zero discussion was allowed about the entire network of prelates who knew and protected the powerful cardinal, or at least looked the other way. More than 5 years later, not one bishop, not one who knew about all of that, and there were dozens and dozens of them, has been turned out of office. The problem isn't the rules or the guidelines or canon law or even the evil. The problem is the men in charge. They don't really see this as a life-destroying evil. They see it and they view it as a legal problem and a public relations problem. Sex abuse is bad because of the black eye we get, not because it's a monstrous evil in and of itself. So now fast forward to the latest chapter of the bishops involved in exploiting children. Only this time, the children have been placed directly in their care by a monstrous child-killing government who is perfectly content to have children suffer to advance its communist-driven agenda of destroying the republic. and the bishops make billions from that same government leviathan. What they've had to pay out for the sex abuse scandal, well, they've easily refilled their coffers with tax dollars with no end in sight. Something needs to be done about this, and Church Militant is leading the charge with regard to it, at least among concerned Catholics. We don't want to tip our hand just yet, but stay tuned. There is much more to come. God love you. I'm Michael Voris.